On the 11th of January 2017, Disney opened its first Marvel attraction in the world at Hong Kong Disneyland. And, ever since, this number continues to grow and these areas and rides become more well-known and popular day by day. However, Disney is not the first theme park to open superhero or even Marvel attractions. But where are they? And are they even good? This is what I'm going to explore today by showcasing some superhero-themed lands across the world and comparing them to the Disney versions. If you are unfamiliar with the Disney Marvel attractions, my previous video covers and shows them all, so watch that if you're interested. Also, as I said in my last video, I've never watched a superhero film before, so if I make any mistakes, I apologise in advance. Second to Avengers Campus, the other most well-known superhero land is Marvel Superhero Island at Universal Orlando Resort. Now, you may be wondering, if Disney owns Marvel and has Marvel in their own parks, what is it doing with their biggest competitor? Universal struck a deal with Marvel Entertainment Group in 1994, which gives them the theme park rights indefinitely. After the acquisition of the company in 2009, Disney gained the theme park rights to most Marvel characters worldwide, except for areas where Universal previously licensed those rights. Specifically, Universal has exclusive theme park rights to certain Marvel characters in the area east of the Mississippi River. This means Disney cannot use these characters in theme park settings within that specific geographic region. This includes Disney's own parks in Orlando, where you will not find any Spider-Man or Hulk, for example, because they already have a home at Universal. Marvel Superhero Island, as you can easily tell by looking at it, is heavily based on the original comics of these characters instead of films. The area sports a distinct pop Art Deco comic book inspired look, contrasting largely with the grey industrial campuses of Disney. The concept of the land is trying to make you feel like you've stepped inside of a comic book, something that I believe it achieves incredibly well. A big criticism of this land is that it is outdated and not realistic compared to the huge-scale, high-immersion lands of today. But, knowing its concept, it does immerse you into what it aims to. It is supposed to be more of a fake, unnatural place because it's not trying to place you in a real location. I think that this area, purely visually, is much better than any Avengers campus as it is much more striking, memorable and fun. The anchor attraction of the land is arguably The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, a motion-based 3D dark ride. The story follows guests as they enter the Daily Bugle and are roped in to help report on the fight between Spider-Man and the current villain on the loose, the Sinister Syndicate. Upon its opening in 1999, this ride was received overwhelmingly positive with everyone, from casual riders to industry critics. It took 3 years to develop and was a major technological advancement by combining motion vehicles, a 3D film, physical sets, and special effects. For the first 12 years of its life, it received the Golden Ticket Award for Best Dark Ride and is widely regarded as one of the best in the world, even today, despite it being 26 years old. In March 2012, the ride reopened after a short refurbishment, which enhanced its video content and updated the mechanics. This is crucial in keeping a ride fresh and not outdated, and is one of the reasons it still holds up today. The success of the ride caused a clone of it to be built in Universal Studios Japan, which opened in January 2004, and also received the same refurbishment in 2013. It was equally as well received and greatly boosted park attendance. This version of the ride is now closed, and did so in January 2024, exactly 20 years after its opening. In my opinion, the ride is superior in practically every way to Disney's Web Slingers. It is important to note, however, that these rides are attempting to accomplish different things. The difference is, Universal succeeds and Disney fails. The Adventures of Spider-Man is innovative, timeless, and genuinely exciting, using the screen as more of a backdrop compared to Web Slingers, where basically all you look at is a screen. Since this ride's inception, Universal Parks, Universal Studios Florida specifically, have had an influx of screen-based motion simulators, which I think took the wrong lesson from this ride's success. People don't like it because of the screens, they like it because of the great storytelling, physical sets, and amazing effects. This ride is genuinely incredible, and I would take it over Web Slingers any day. Also in the land is the Incredible Hulk coaster, a launched B&M coaster opening with the land. The ride is notable for being the first B&M roller coaster to feature a launch. It reaches a max speed of 67 miles an hour or 108 kilometers an hour, and has 7 inversions. When it opened in 1999, the story followed an experiment by Dr. Bruce Banner to reverse the effects of gamma mutation, which the guests take part in. In 2016, the ride received a major renovation with new pieces of track, a redesigned queue, and an updated story. After this, the ride follows a new experiment, this time led by General Thunderbolt Ross, to replicate the gamma radiation incident that created the Hulk in order to create an army of them. Famously, the renovated ride has a statue of Hulk over the entrance holding a piece of track from the original coaster. The ride was well received but had a few complaints about its intensity. A clone of the coaster exists in Universal Studios Beijing, but it is instead themed Transformers. I can't really have much of an opinion on this coaster as I'm very scared of roller coasters and I've never ridden this, but people who like coasters like this ride and it looks pretty cool over the water, so I'm pretty happy with this ride and its existence. The only comparable Disney rides are Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind and Avengers Assemble Flight Force, as they are the only Marvel coasters, but they offer very different experiences to Hulk. I think a good comparison can, in the future, be made between this ride and Shanghai Disneyland's Spider-Man roller coaster, as they will both be launched intense roller coasters based on superheroes, so we will see which one reigns supreme. Doctor Doom's Fearful is a space shot ride based on the enemy of the Fantastic Four. The story of the ride is based around Doctor Doom creating an experiment to harness your fear in order to defeat the Fantastic Four. Contrasting with the rest of Marvel Superhero Island, and fitting with the fact that we're now dealing with a villain, the street leading up to the ride is more of an alley, with dingy, darker theming. I love this transition so much as it really sets up the mood before you even step on the ride, making it feel like a full experience which enhances what could be a fairly basic flat ride. This is something that Superhero Island does better than Avengers Campus as there is no flat/smaller rides in them. They are vital to the theme park experience and don't have to be boring and basic and small, as seen with Doctor Doom's Fearful. The last ride in Superhero Island is Storm Force Acceleron, a teacup ride based on the X-Men. Opening a year after the rest of the land, in 2000, this ride was added to increase capacity and add more for younger guests to do. It is a fairly simple and basic ride, which isn't the best, but because the rest of the land is so good, this ride isn't as bad as there are other Marvel things to do. The ride is themed as guests creating power for the Acceleron to help the X-Men so they can defeat Magneto. Like I said before, there is nothing to really compare this to, and it isn't a highlight of the land, but it is a necessary staple. The rest of the land contains shops and restaurants, as well as a meet and greet with heroes, including Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Rogue, Spider-Man, and Captain America. There is also the Superhero Parade, a daily parade performed in the land featuring many characters, with some riding quad bikes. This area has less but more consistent entertainment, so it depends what you would prefer personally. In my opinion, this land is better than any Avengers Campus as it has better rides, more of them, unique and eye-catching theming, and actually contains innovation, something notably not found in any Disney Marvel attraction. Opening with the park in April 2002, DC Superheroes World is a highly themed and detailed land in Park Warner Madrid in Spain. It is, obviously, themed to the DC superheroes comics and films. This land is half set in the fictional Gotham City and half in Metropolis, which are both based on New York City. Now, New York City is a very common theme park land that can be achieved for fairly cheap. However, this is not what you will find at Park Warner Madrid. DC Superheroes World is extremely detailed, realistic, and immersive, recreating some iconic places from these famous stories. I like this land much better than Avengers Campus as it feels more like a real place, somewhere you could just stumble upon. I also think that it is much better to include recognizable places from the IP you're using, as the fans are more likely to visit and enjoy it if there's places for them to know. This is a mistake I also think Disney made with Galaxy's Edge, creating an entirely new Star Wars world instead of pulling from the many pre-existing ones. One of the main draws to this land is Superman, Steel Attraction, as is the English translation because I do not speak Spanish. A flawless steel coaster, the ride features 7 inversions and is themed to the comic version of Superman, with the queue resembling the fictional newspaper Daily Planet. The on-ride story follows you teaming up with Superman to flee from Brainiac's kryptonite laser, with the flawless aspect to simulate you flying with the hero. The queue is generally decently themed, appearing convincingly like an office building with some Superman memorabilia. The actual ride portion, however, is the total opposite, with absolutely no theming. I hold this park to a lower standard than Disney, due to the lower price and less of a reputation, but the rest of this land is of a high quality. Therefore, when you ride this ride, you expect theming of some description at least, maybe a tree or two. The story is also a bit lazy, just having you fly with Superman and the threat being completely pointless as we never see him or hear him, so there's basically no threat at all. Disney coasters in general exceed this in theming, but I wouldn't be able to report on whether the actual coaster portion is better or not. I think, overall, Disney exceeds this and achieves something better with its coasters, so it's a win for Disney, I guess. Also in the area are some flat rides. Firstly, Lex Luthor Invertitron, a top spin themed to the diabolical experiments of Superman's nemesis Lex Luthor. The facade and queue for the ride is themed as LexCorp, where you can view the villain's experiments before riding one yourself in the courtyard of his radioactive lab. This ride is a generally okay themed flat ride, adding necessary capacity and smaller experiences into this land and the park as a whole. Secondly, Mr. Freeze Fabrica de Helio is a wave swinger ride loosely themed around Batman's enemy. There is not really any theming to this ride or any story, but to be fair, most people don't really care when they're on something as simple as a wave swinger. It's not really a problem. In addition, you can find the Joker Coches de Choc, a bumper car ride. This attraction is aimed at younger children and has no story, but is lightly themed around the Joker. So, as I said before, I don't really have any problems with it. Lastly, towering 115 metres above the park, you'll see the Revenge of the Enigma, a drop tower ride themed to the Riddler, or Enigma as he is sometimes known. The tallest non-roller coaster in Europe, this ride drops you down 100 metres at a speed of 80 kilometres an hour. It also doesn't really have any theming, but it is more so there to impress and thrill, so whatever. But they could have at least done a bit of a better job with this one, I think, as it has basically no attempt at a story at all. All of these rides exemplify something Disney is missing in Avengers Campus: smaller filler attractions. If you only build large, full-scale rides, they will have long waits all day and guests may feel that they haven't really done much. This opinion is only worsened when these rides are of lower quality, so having some in-between, more accessible rides helps guests to feel like they have accomplished more, so they won't have as bad of an opinion of worse rides they experience. The area also features 2 more coasters, the first of which is Shadows of Arkham. Opening with the park, Shadows of Arkham is a clone of Batman the Ride, featured in multiple Six Flags parks and was formerly known as Batman La Fuga and Batman Arkham Asylum. It is a B&M inverted coaster with 5 inversions that reaches a top speed of 83 kilometers an hour. The story of the ride follows guests taking a visit to the Arkham Asylum, a famous prison. When someone escapes, they have to team up with Dark Knight to track them down. In 2017, the ride received virtual reality glasses, a highly debated topic in the industry, but that made it the first VR coaster in Spain, likely drawing in new guests. At some point, these were removed from the attraction. In 2024, to coincide with the last ride we have to talk about, the ride received minor theming updates to enhance the immersion and cohesion with the new edition and current DC trends. The queue is incredibly themed, appearing very realistic, abandoned and neglected, with graffiti all over from the prisoners within. The actual on-ride portion isn't themed at all, but, unlike Superman's Steel attraction, there is at least some landscaping and trees. It would be nice to see some additions of on-ride audio or some light theming around the coaster, but what is there right now looks to be an incredible coaster experience. The newest, biggest, and arguably best experience in DC superheroes world is Batman Gotham City Escape. Widely regarded as one of the best coasters in Europe, Gotham City Escape is an intimate LSM multi-launch roller coaster with 3 launches, 4 inversions, a top hat, and a top speed of 104 kilometers an hour or 65 miles per hour. The story follows guests entering Wayne Manor for a tour and being immersed in a story between Batman and Joker, which takes them through the Batcave and Gotham City subway while trying to escape. On-ride guests are trying to escape the city to avoid villains like the Joker, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy, while riding above non-riders' heads in accessible paths. This ride is incredibly well themed, with the queue being praised for its pre-show and detailed and immersive sets, placing you right in iconic Batman locations. The actual coaster is endlessly raved about as one of the best in Europe and the whole world, and won the Best New European Attraction of 2023 at the World Park Awards. Compared to Disney, this ride is better than almost all of the Avengers rides put together, and while Disney isn't trying to make rides this intense, completely puts them to shame. The rest of the land contains a few meet and greets with characters such as Batman, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and the Joker, as well as a show called Gotham City Stunt Show, where you can watch Batman and the Joker engage in a fight. They also have exclusive experiences here for their Halloween. The whole of DC Superheroes World has impressed me so much, as I just wasn't expecting it to be as good as it is. I had never heard of it before researching for this video, and it blew my mind. Why aren't more people talking about this? I take this over Avengers Campus any day, and I'd still be too scared to ride any of the rides. Leading innovators who? Now, after being mean to Disney for the whole of this video, I'm going to be nice to them, because now we're talking about Six Flags. If you're not aware, Six Flags is a chain of parks around the world, but mainly in America, that are known for not being the best themed or operated parks. I'm not going to go over them in much detail, as there are so many lands and rides, and they've changed so much over the years. These lands are generally large, unthemed grey plains with a few roller coasters and flat rides scattered throughout. The Gotham City areas have slightly more personality, seeming dilapidated and abandoned, but are still relatively the same. People seem to like the coasters, so that part seems to be good, but Disney does a much better job at making superhero lands than this. However, these areas share some DNA with Disney's areas, being mainly grey and themed as a hub for many heroes, something I criticised about Avengers Campus, which is also a problem here. That's why the few Gotham City areas are much better. They can be better themed because they have more of a theme to adhere to. Overall, you can make incredible, detailed, and immersive theme park lands themed to superheroes. You can see them in Universal Orlando Resort, Park Warner Madrid, and yes, in some places Disney. But you can also make uninteresting, flat, boring lands based on heroes, as seen in Six Flags and many Disney parks. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, maybe like or watch another one. I really enjoy making these, so hopefully more will be coming in the future. Thank you. Goodbye.